Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Javier with the Real Javier Novoa channel, where we apply the principles of philosophy, mysticism, spirituality, and sound business to success in life and business. And I'm coming to you today with part 2 of the series that we were making and that I had promised to make on preparation. And I feel that this is very important. In fact, last night I was prompted to do this about making the last episode, the emergency broadcast of the JN show regarding the current political and economic situation. I think it's very important that you and your family watch that, and perhaps I will put that link in the prescription, or in the description rather, and in the prescription for what you should do in these times. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell the total truth here. I was hesitating to make this segment of the series, and this is about intellectual preparation. And many people are going to find this very, shall we say, abstract and not applicable, and people are probably going to get bored with it in the beginning. But it is the most important plank of preparation here on the physical levels of that scale of being. And if you have not watched my video on the scale of being, please watch that, because it is a key to understanding many of the principles and many of the teachings that we give in this program and on this channel. But I decided to make it because I would be amiss, and it would be a dereliction of duty, so to speak, as a teacher of these principles if I did not teach on this, because the intellectual level is actually the most important level in what makes us the beings that we are, in what makes us human. And it is also very important to the society that we have a population of educated individuals who are actually educated in the liberal arts, in the arts that were taught in schools since the beginning of civilization, and which they ceased teaching just recently as part of a plan, ladies and gentlemen, to create a more subservient society to whomever the powers that be are, and we will leave it at that. We will not go into much detail on that, because this is not a political show, but this is a show that wants you to be able to see the entirety of the panorama, both social and economic and intellectual, so that you can make informed decisions about what to do for yourselves and your families in these times. And our education system, ladies and gentlemen, there's no denying that our education system, especially in the United States, and probably by now in the rest of the world, is a shambles. There is no education, so to speak. It is definitely not worth it, and I would advise any of my clients and close associates not to go to university. Don't waste a dime in universities, because you're not going to learn anything of value anymore. And most of the knowledge is actually counter-knowledge. It is anti-knowledge. It is meant to make you more ignorant, and it is meant to disempower you from being able to find the sources of that knowledge. And we'll go into this more in this program. But intellectual preparation is very important, both for the society and for you individually, for yourselves and your family, because first of all, you need to know how to spot inaccurate information so that you're not pulled down that vein of propaganda that the whole rest of the society is pulled down, and therefore pulled into this political antithesis and polarization that we see going on now. Everything that's happening now is devised according to a plan to dehumanize the population and to disempower them so that they will be completely subservient to pendulums and power structures. Indeed, this is the ultimate end of pendulums. This is what they do. We're not saying that that is good or bad. We're simply saying this is the case, and that here's the way to prepare yourself so that you are not swept up in that. Because no matter what happens to the rest of society, of course we know in the spiritual realm, you can get off a film roll and onto another film roll in an instant. But in the intellectual and physical realm, there are also steps that you can take, and these steps will, and here's the paradox, enable you more easily to utilize that spiritual realm or the tools of that spiritual realm, and it will make it easier for you to shift realities and film rolls and so on and so forth. Basically, preparation is going to give us an intellectual preparation. It's going to give us that intellectual foundation. It's going to give us that confidence, and it is going to perfect our intellectual faculties, which are indeed what set us apart as human beings, as a species, at least in this existence. So, on the spiritual levels, as we talked about, there really is no preparation, because you are the one. It is all happening within you, and you can simply be the observer of the drama, and in observing it, as the observer effect teaches in physics, you can change that. But while we're in the game, and we did choose to come into this game, and part of that, even though there's no compulsion to do so, but part of that is perfecting your faculties. And there are faculties that we can all perfect just simply by virtue of being a member of the human species, and that is what the highest rung of this intellectual preparation will prepare you to do. So, when we come down into personality and thoughts, beliefs, and contexts, you have preparation in order to focus you, in order to insulate yourself from the negative effects of what is coming on this film roll, and in order to prepare yourself for taking advantage of opportunities. Of course, we know that opportunities are limitless. There is no scarcity. Scarcity is a concept that can only exist in a certain mode of being. But within the game, there are grand opportunities presenting themselves, and we can get into those opportunities and ride the waves of those opportunities, but we need the preparation, chief of which is intellectual preparation, and then, of course, financial and physical preparation all play their roles in that, and that's what we'll be talking about in this series. So, the point is that you're multidimensional, first of all. And there may be some paradox, as we said. It is all spiritual, but when you're on the physical, as I wrote here in my notes, you'll need the tools. And by the way, on the rest of these blocks of preparation, we talked about the spiritual yesterday, but the intellectual has a foot both in the spiritual and the physical. And on the lower levels of the intellectual preparation, which is the technical knowledge and the methodologies and so on, and which is a big part of our course and a big part of our channel, these are all in the physical realm, and these are things that you can do, that everyone can do, to be prepared. So, intellect in itself is a good if you study the philosophers, and indeed, according to many of the philosophers, it is the highest good, and there is a good argument for this, because a human being naturally seeks to know, as the philosophers discuss. It's like food. A human being naturally seeks to satisfy his physical desires, but the other members of animal kingdoms and so on and so forth, other species, we have that in common with them. But the thing that the species on this planet that we know of, there may indeed be higher dimensions there, but the species that we know of the species on this planet that we know of or that we can openly talk about, human beings are the only ones that have an intellect and the ability to reason. So this is a very important part of being human. So therefore, at the ultimate level, knowledge is a good in itself, just like wealth can be. Just like love and relationships can be. Knowledge is to be sought for itself. It is a pleasure and a good. So therefore, on the higher rungs of this intellectual level or this intellectual preparation, we seek knowledge simply for the sake of itself and for no exterior motive. And that ties into the rest of the course, because in this course, we take actions simply for the deliciousness of it. We're not taking actions directly to get somewhere else, although as a byproduct of those actions and as a byproduct of practicing these actions and implementing them with joy, we do get a lot of results and massive success. But the intention cannot be for that, otherwise it vitiates the functionality of that process. So you want to have, and I wrote notes for this one because there are some very powerful recommendations I want to give, and this might end up being a little bit longer video. But you want to have knowledge of high and beautiful concepts. There's pleasure in that. You want to have knowledge of how to use your mind, which is the methodology of thought, and this is going to help us in all levels. And you want to attain wisdom. You want knowledge of how to attain wisdom. This is the first type of knowledge, as I said, which is a good in itself. It frees you. That's why we call the main arts which were taught in the educational systems of all humanity until very recently, until certain pressure groups got a hold of our curricula and our educational system, the liberal arts were taught in the past. And the purpose of them were to free your mind. For the knower of the liberal arts and the practitioner of them was a free man. The liberal arts are, of course, logic, grammar, and rhetoric. The knower of these arts knew how to think, knew how to represent his thought and combine the symbols of that thought, and knew how to convey his thought to others and understand thought that was being, or receive thought that was being conveyed to him. These three modalities are, ladies and gentlemen, what make us human and what make us part of a community, an intellectual community, and indeed a spiritual community. So, liberal arts, liber means free. These arts free us. And this is the first plank of the intellectual preparation that I'm going to be talking about. The study and the devotion of your mind and the contemplation of these liberal arts first and foremost. So, as we said, these very arts stem from our humanity. They are a very offshoot of our humanity, because our whole modality of thought is, at least now, in this present time, what makes us human. And of course, spiritually, we know we even have to rise above that. But we will never lose those aspects of individuality which make us unique. They will only be deepened. We know this from the great spiritual teachers and from, indeed, personal experience. So, no wonder the powers that be wish to strip you of those. Learning the trivium, these arts, logic, grammar, and rhetoric, which are the first step in this mental preparation or this intellectual preparation, will benefit you, first of all, indirectly, in that it's going to make you able to learn quicker, it's going to make you able to study deeper, and it's going to make you able to learn quicker than your colleagues, because you'll have these mental tools that stem from the study of these topics. It's also going to make you more persuasive, because when you study rhetoric, you're going to you're going to be better able to communicate your ideas and to persuade others, and to receive that, and even receive propaganda without necessarily having to be affected by it, because you know the difference between thoughts and emotions, and you know the aspects of grammar, and the aspects of rhetoric, which has a component of emotionality in it. You see how all that ties into this course. So, learning the trivium is going to benefit you. It will also benefit you directly, because it's going to give you a direct contact of what it means to be human. Of course, you know this viscerally, but it's going to allow you to know it on deeper levels, intellectually and indeed spiritually. When you practice these arts, when you learn them, and when you contemplate upon them, you're going to come into direct contact of the beauty of knowing and of the beauty of what it actually means to be human. And that's one of the chief reasons that you came. So I recommend you learn these as a lifelong pursuit. You're not going to rapid learn this And I do teach rapid learning techniques in this course, and we're going to talk about it as part of intellectual preparation. But this is not something that you're going to speed read or rapid learn. And it's not something that you're going to get today, and it's not probably something that you're going to get in 20 years. But and I'm still developing myself in learning these arts. It's a lifelong pursuit, and it is a joy, and it is done as an end in itself. And of course, the benefits spill over as byproducts, just as profit is byproduct of doing business in a good form. So too are the learning benefits and applicational benefits of the trivium or the liberal arts, of studying them in good form. So you understand this. So the first book I'm going to recommend in this video and in this course, it is called The Trivium by Sister Miriam Joseph. It is a classical book in this, and is the first book I read probably about 15 years ago after saving myself from the horrific education system. Probably more than 15 years ago, probably about 20 years ago. But it basically, in a very succinct and abbreviated manner, teaches the bases of these liberal arts, and then it gives you other books to read. Another book that I'd recommend on logic, it's very important to learn logic, because the logic does not necessarily teach you the laws of thought, as many philosophers have said. What it teaches you are rules for avoiding huge mistakes in thought. And these mistakes are usually led to by reliance on emotions exclusively, and the reason or rationality second. Whereas in this course we teach the union between mind and heart, the union between emotions and reason. None of them should take prominence. They should both be in harmony, and this is where the true power comes. So study logic. John Stuart Mill goes into a system of logic. It's a great book on logic to teach you the basic principles. Then you start reading some of the great books of Western civilization, the ones that you choose. Perhaps you can read Novum Organum by Francis Bacon. Some of these other great books. But due to the education system, not a lot of people know how to read. Believe me, when I graduated high school, I did not know how to read. That does not mean that I did not know how to spell words and to sound them out and to get a basic understanding of information. But we don't know how to read in a deep way, and in a way in which we can interpret the passages and the books and understand their component parts and understand them as a whole and understand how the parts relate to the whole and how they relate to each other, and then apply that to our experiences. Most people, even most professors, as the author of the book that I'm going to recommend says, do not know how to read. And this is reading in a very deep way. It is indeed reading in a very in a way that is exegetical, in which you can actually make exegesis or a gloss of the text, which is what many great intellectuals did in the Middle Ages, and now we're seeing that less and less. But in this vein, you must read a book called How to Read a Book by the great Mortimer Adler, who was a philosopher and who taught a lot about these issues. And basically this book teaches you how to read, how to contemplate, and it goes from the beginning, and it incorporates logic and rhetoric, and it incorporates how to actually study the contents of the books, and then to preliminarily read it, to know what you're reading, and be able to anticipate, and to be able to pre-read, and then to be able to go back over what you've read, and to be able to relate the whole complex of that book, both to itself and to other books you've read and to other experiences you've had. Indeed, this is going to grow you mentally more than you ever thought possible. But you have to give it time. And you should always read books that are above your head. Because when you're reading a book that is above your head, and you should make this great books in whatever tradition you're trying to pursue. Because you can read books that are very easy to read. You can do that for information. I do it all the time. But to read truly great books, you can only read a few of those a year because it takes weeks and it takes time, but you get the most bang for your buck. It's like what we were talking about in our videos on the minimum effective dose. You can read 3 or 4 great books a year, and you can get more benefit than you would if you read 100 books that were simply mediocre and were not the greatest in the discipline. Always read above your head, and how to read a book teaches you how to do this by seeking out the words that you don't understand, figuring out through context what the author means to convey through those words, and then figuring out the arguments of the author, and indeed interpreting that, then deciding whether or not you agree with it after you've read the whole book, and basically having a discussion with the book. This is a very deep way of reading, and it's something that probably only 1% of the population knows how to do. The elites, ladies and gentlemen, the people who are in power and the people who are engineering the society do know how to read because they teach them this in their schools. And we have to teach ourselves this, and we have to teach our families this so that we can be informed citizens. When we watch news programs or mass media or social media, they want to convey information to us in such a way as to manipulate us, and they don't want us to dig deeper into the background of that information. And if you don't know how to read deeply, you're not going to know how to do that. But when you read this book, How to Read a Book, and you start reading the great books, you will know how to trace an argument, you will know the components of an argument, and you also know the emotive aspects of rhetoric that people are using when they try to insert thoughts into your mind. And we can talk about this more. This is one of the main reasons why you should read the great books and learn the liberal arts. That's the first plank of this preparation, and we can do more videos on that. The next plank, and this is going to serve you as a citizen, by the way, also. It's going to let you make more informed choices. You don't have to be a partisan. You don't have to be the fanatical member of a group or a party, but rather you can look at your interests and you can study all of the relevant issues, and then you can make a more informed decision, one that you'll feel better about. That's the first plank. This will also serve you in business. So secondly, I'd recommend studying philosophy, because philosophy down this vein basically teaches you how to think, and it teaches you to grapple with the great concepts, and it gets you out of your comfort zone. Some brief books on Plato and Aristotle will do to start with, and also Adler wrote a book, I think it was called Aristotle for Everybody, and it's a great introduction to Aristotle. And Aristotle is a great introduction to logic and science, or whatever you want to pursue after that. Of course, the Aristotelian methodology, or the Aristotelian corpus, is a good start, but of course he was very one-dimensional. And you have to move beyond him, and you can read other authors that have moved beyond him and who have also synthesized Aristotle and Plato. I'd recommend reading the dialogues of Plato, especially Timaeus, when it comes to spiritual matters, because he summarizes the whole spiritual and physical dichotomy very, very well. Of course, I would also recommend that you read the Stoics, and this is less for philosophical than for practical or ethical, which is a branch of philosophy. But it basically teaches you how to react and how to keep your cool in life situations. And I would start with the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, and I'd read that book as often as you have recourse to it. And I'd start with the Handbook or the Enchiridion of Epictetus, and I'd start with the letters of Seneca on that vein. This is going to train your mind in thought. And you're going to develop a mind that is very sharp and that is very able to grapple with high concepts, to combine concepts. And you'll already be hand over fist above your peers. Because your peers are not, ladies and gentlemen, going to be seeking out these books, and they're not going to be studying philosophy. Probably they have not opened a book since they left their educational institutions in the university. So I don't recommend anyone now go to university unless it's very specialized and you know where you're going, and it's very necessary. So you have to educate yourself. Next, and probably more, or probably just equally as importantly, I'd recommend really ground yourself in the law of assumption and the law of attraction, because this is going to be very important preparation for learning how to create, learning how to manipulate reality in the way that you want, which is why we came. Most people are doing this unconsciously. We're all creating our reality through our thoughts and through our vibrations, but 99% of the society is doing it unconsciously. They think that in order to achieve something, you have to work hard and you have to move things around on the physical, which, by the way, is a very Aristotelian concept, that we cannot create anything, we simply move around matter. That's why people are exhausting themselves. That's why people don't know what to do. That's why people don't know how to get out of the quicksand. But if you study law of attraction and law of assumption, you will know that it has nothing to do with effort. It's all about what you think. It's all about what you vibrate. So I am writing a book on the law of assumption and law of attraction. It's coming out very soon. But until then, and these are all still great books, the first book I recommend you read is The Power of Imagination by Neville Goddard. It is indeed the best. It has the best techniques, especially for people just starting out, and it goes deeply into the philosophical basis of the law of assumption, which means that whatever you assume is automatically brought about on the outer. And he is very biblical and very philosophical, and if you contemplate that book, and you will be contemplating it for years, you will learn, but even upon the first reading, you'll learn very quickly the components of the law of assumption and how to practice it if you're new to this. And even if you're not new to this, I'd recommend you read these books. Keep training your mind in it, and also contemplate for yourself, because eventually what will happen is that you'll get to a point where you have no authority and you simply know within what to do. Because you are, ladies and gentlemen, the only authority and the only arbiter in this. So the second book that I recommend is Ask and It Is Given by Abraham Hicks. And I'd recommend that you just go to YouTube. If you've never heard Abraham Hicks before, listen to Abraham Hicks, because Esther Hicks is so inspired, and she gives practical answers to any situations that her questioners ask her that are so practical and so consistent, it'll blow your mind. And you will become an expert, ladies and gentlemen, in the law of attraction. You'll become a PhD in the law of attraction after a few months of listening and absorbing her material. And indeed, we take material like that, and original material which I've generated, and material that I've studied from philosophy and spirituality, and we apply it specifically to success, business, preparation, and these things. So it's all of value. I'd recommend you watch my videos, and I'd recommend you listen to the great spiritual teachers like Abraham Hicks. Also, I'd recommend you look at Bashar and listen to Bashar, because he also has very profound concepts and a profound way of relating them that's going to be immediately practical to your life. I'd recommend, as I said in the last video, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and this is more spiritual. This is going to teach you how to be in the now, and you can refer to my last video on spiritual preparation for that. So for practical and business, you need to just start diving in, because this is going to be where you start learning information. And by the way, before I get into that, economics is of paramount importance, and this sort of straddles between the purely intellectual and the practical, because economics is theory and practice. It's of paramount importance in understanding both human society and in profiting, and understanding the causes of the current decline and what to do. You're going to be able to intuitively know what to do, how to invest, when you have a firm grasp of Austrian economics. You've got to study rational economics, which the Austrian economists are rational. Why? Because Austrian economists do not begin economics as an empirical discipline where you see a bunch of things on the outer and then you make an inductive conclusion from that. Because human economics is based upon human action, the fact that humans act in a very human way. And human action is simply an offshoot of human thought, so therefore it has its basis in human thought, and it has its basis in logic. Therefore, it does not begin with empiricism as other sciences do, as the physical sciences do, even though we're learning now more that the physical sciences have a lot that is not empirical in them, especially physics. And it's going to get very interesting as time goes on. But economics, it starts from the axiom that humans act. And then a few other propositions are brought in as lemmas from observation of the outer world, because we could construct a model of economics, or what the Austrian economics call praxeology, which is the science of action. We could construct that on another planet that has other laws, or maybe for extraterrestrials. But on this planet that has the laws that contains the laws that it contains, therefore we guide the arguments, or we guide the logical progression according to things that can be observed on the ground. So although it develops of its own accord logically, it is basically has guardrails that keep it in our reality. And this is very important. So Austrian economics is a rational economics, and it teaches us that there's no economic measurement, because indeed there's nothing to measure. Because economics deals with, as we said, confidence, it deals with desire, it deals with inverse valuations, which means that, if I have a piece of gold and you have a very nice pair of shoes, then that implies that I value the pair of shoes much more than I value the piece of gold. And so therefore these valuations in and of themselves cannot be measured. You can't say, well, I value it 4 times more than you do. How would we, according to what unit will we measure that? So Austrian economics, but other economics like Keynesian economics do make equations and devise equations as if something could be measured. And this is misleading. And this is indeed why Keynesian economics makes you stupid, because it's not a rational economics, and it's not based upon the reality on the ground. So it also teaches, Austrian economics relates to spirituality, because it bases everything in the spiritual and in the psychical. Profit and loss are at root psychic and spiritual. Because even when we deal with money, which is, by the way, the one thing that we can measure in economics, and it allows us to calculate rationally, and we can go into this more in a video on Austrian economics. But profit and loss, even at the root of money, it all comes down to a feeling and a desire, and this is where it relates to the law of attraction and law of assumption. And so therefore, true profit is psychic profit, which means that what the numbers say is not necessarily the ultimate, which means that there can be no planned economy. Because in a planned economy, you are assuming that there is something to be measured and therefore directed. But you cannot, for example, plan what the demand will be for wheat, let's say, because you don't know the complex desires which are ever-changing of every actor in that economy. That's why the economy can only be organized spiritually, organically, and spontaneously through the spontaneous operations of the market. And this is very interesting. So you have to study this. You have to study Human Action by Ludwig von Mises. You have to read it and contemplate over it. And it will take you a few months. And you have to read Man, Economy, and State by Murray Rothbard, which is a lot easier to understand, and he also improves a lot upon Mises' model. And you should go to Mises.org and start reading some of the economic books. For those just starting out in Austrian economics, even though it's not very heavy theoretically, and the theory is what you actually need here so that you can apply it to other situations and multiple situations, is Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt. And we learn from Austrian economics that government is the cause of all of the current economic problems. Therefore, what the government's doing and what the Fed's doing and what interventions are coming down the pipeline and what legislation is coming down, you will know, at least in a general way, how that could influence the economy, all things being equal. So it helps you to predict, even though in Austrian economics there's no prediction. because that it goes into that as well, that there's no way to predict because we cannot know the complex desires and we cannot know things that are going on exteriorly to the market and so on and so forth. But they're pretty accurate. Like Peter Schiff, who has studied Austrian economics, was one of the only ones to predict the housing crisis. Why didn't the Keynesians predict the housing crisis? Well, because their economics is irrational, and it focuses upon factors that don't matter. So this is why it's very important to study Austrian economics. So just really quickly, for business, you have to get into your own groove. And one of the hugest books I recommend for people going into business and for people just trying to be successful in any endeavor in life or having children is to read Getting Things Done by David Allen. This is basically an organizational system. It teaches you to capture all of your thoughts about things that need to be solved. It teaches you to process them, figure out what they are. Then you generate projects. And then you boil it down to the very next action step that you can take. Physical action step that you can take. And then you carry these in lists, which are listed according to their context. So you always have your list of possible things to do. Of course, you don't have to always follow those lists, but you have them. And this is very important. It's been a great factor in my success, both in business and in life. So I'd recommend that. I can't more highly recommend it. Another book in business I'd recommend is reading The Goal by Eliyahu Goldratt, who was a great business consultant, and he taught the theory of constraints. And I have some videos about this. Basically, the theory of constraints is where you find bottlenecks in your business. In the bottleneck, a small change can make a great impact. So you find those bottlenecks, you do small changes, and you reap great impacts in business. So there are a lot of books in business that I'd recommend. Those are the main ones. I'd also recommend reading anything by Peter Drucker, who is just a great management teacher and philosopher. And I'd also recommend reading The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. It teaches you actually how to divide up your business and how to segment it and actually prepare the business as a system before you do anything on the ground. And this will also tie into the imagination that we teach in this course and how Tesla developed products, where he would always imagine and sort out the kinks and tweak his inventions before he did anything physical. He would get them completely perfect in imagination. And that's a modality that you can take. I'm trying to think of any others that I would recommend here. But there's a great business book by the great Trevor Blake, who is actually a millionaire, who is in the pharmaceutical industry, and he knows these principles and practices these principles. And I believe it is called How to Do Business. You can look this book up. It's by Trevor Blake. It's relatively new, and it basically teaches you the main aspects of generating ideas for businesses and how to incorporate and the importance of cash flow and so on and so forth, and how to have a small business where you don't have to hire any employees. The smaller and more agile groups are going to capture the future because there's less communication overhead, there's less bureaucracy, there's less density. It is more spiritual, and we'll go into that in the future. Another book that I just generally recommend for your life is called Atomic Habits. And this book basically talks about how to make small improvements in your life that create massive habits. And you only have to improve your things in your life or these habits that you want to take on by 1%. So I would definitely recommend reading Atomic Habits. And all of this knowledge that you get, you have to practice it, you have to do it, and you have to teach your family. And just one more modality that I really recommend. Learn accelerated learning for things that you have to implement on the ground. This is not for the higher level knowledge or wisdom. This is for things that, for example, you want to go into business, you want to rapidly acquire a skill. You can learn, and I'm going to make more videos on accelerated learning, but The First 20 Hours by Josh Kaufman is a great book that basically teaches you how to take 20 hours and go from knowing nothing about a topic to being better than the average person. Of course, you're not going to be an expert, but you're going to be much better than the average person at that who perhaps has been doing it for years without deliberate practice. And I'd also recommend The 4-Hour Chef by Tim Ferriss. In the beginning, he talks about accelerated learning. And this is basically where, through interviewing experts, through research, and it's very short, fast, and quick research, you can break a skill down into subsets or groups, and then you can figure out which of those components will give you the biggest bang for your buck, the minimum effective dose. And then you can start practicing those small components so that you can practice 20% of the components that'll get you to 80% proficiency. Let's say learning a language. Well, in English, for example, there's what's called basic English, which is the 100 most frequently used words. If you spent most of your time learning the 100 most frequently used words, you will at least be able to make out texts and communication in English, and that'll be a springboard forward. Whereas if you start studying complex grammar, you might not learn much and you might give up very soon. Early wins are also very necessary in accelerated learning. But for business and for these fast-moving times, I would recommend learning accelerated learning. Also learn to contemplate, and I did do a video on contemplation and idea generation, and we will be doing more videos on contemplation. Learn to research. The Craft of Research is a great book because you will have to research certain topics and present them to audiences in order to excel in whatever it is that you're pursuing. These are all going to serve you well. So learn as much as you can. Learn the trivium in order to simply to be able to live a good life as a human. Learn philosophy. Study these. And also learn certain topics in a very accelerated manner that are going to give you massive success in business. And a lot of this is what you'll be able to glean by watching this channel. If you watch my channel for a year, you're going to get a better business education than most people get after 4 years of university. And you're going to practice the information, and you're going to get experience. You're going to get valuable experience. Because what this channel is all about is taking the tools and practicing them and implementing them in your life for rapid success. So ladies and gentlemen, this is intellectual preparation. It's going to serve you well, especially in the uncertain future and in the chaos which is coming, which of course we know that the same word in Chinese for chaos is the same word for opportunity. So ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching the video. I will see you guys very soon. This weekend we have an exciting lineup of videos coming out. We're going to make a few, perhaps a few deep dives. So if you like my material, subscribe and like, because this is the only way that we're going to get this information to the people that need them. I'm also very soon going to be developing a coaching and consultation modality, and you can email me at javier_novoa@hotmail.com for more information, in which I'll be taking consultation calls and coaching calls, and we'll be dialoguing in order to benefit in the changes that are coming. So ladies and gentlemen, I will see y'all very soon. This is Javier from The Real Javier Novoa, and until next time, remain in state.